Are you thinking about quitting your job? Well, you're not alone, but there are 5 questions I would ask myself before I decide to quit my job. I think there's a growing sense of this desire to quit your job. And while I think older generations are usually more patient, a little more thought out, and probably less likely to quit, I think younger generations a lot of times don't have that. They just go for it. And I think sometimes that's a good thing, right? If you're miserable and everything's going south and the job's dead end, and it can feel like a really quick solution to just quit your job. However, there are a lot of implications with quitting your job. Life is pretty big and jobs are pretty important, even if sometimes they feel like a nightmare and you hate them. We need to be patient and we need to be thoughtful when we're quitting our jobs. If we're not thoughtful and we're not patient, a lot of times we can rush off into another situation that's just as bad as the one we're in. So let's get into these 5 questions that I think if you think about these questions, you answer these questions, you'll make much better decisions when it comes to quitting your job or not quitting your job and being a little more patient. The first question is the most obvious and the one you should have a pretty quick answer to is, why are you wanting to quit? Are we dealing with burnout? Is it boredom? Maybe a bad boss? What are the reasons that are driving you to want to quit? And then how consistently are they happening? I think a lot of people make the mistake of quitting in a rough season. Different industries are different, but I know a lot of industries have seasonal highs and lows. I've worked in retail, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in the government sector, and one thing that's pretty consistent with all of those is that they have seasons. So healthcare, a lot of times it picks up whenever people start getting sick in the winter. I think retail has seasons during the summer, depending on what kind of retail you're in, but they have seasons. So if you're in a rough patch and it's seasonal and you're considering quitting based on the worst 3 months of the year, then maybe you need to be a little patient. And if you're not sure, ask people who have been there for a while. Is this how it always is? Or does this tail off at certain points of the year? If you can't get clear answers on how consistent it happens, start tracking it and keep up with it on your own. Keep track of it for a few weeks, month, and then see, is this something that happens regularly, or is this something that, kind of comes and goes? I will say sometimes coming and going is a red flag though. So if your job gets worse when your boss has more time on their hands, that's a major red flag. So just really think through everything and how consistent it is before you make a decision. Question number 2 is, have you had honest conversations with the people that are causing the problem? And for some of you, this may be difficult because I know a lot of people are too nice, too shy, too scared to have those conversations. But if you're at the point where you're about to quit your job, a major life decision, then I would encourage you just to have those conversations. I have had plenty of conversations with leaders where I've just told them, like, I just don't like this job. I don't like the way things are going. And the good ones listen and try to do things better. The bad ones show their cards pretty quickly. So ask for changes. Let them know what you don't like. And even if they don't change, at least you know before you quit, you've done what you could to at least push it the right direction. And then also, if it's coworkers, and this can be even more difficult, I think people find it a lot easier to be hostile towards their boss than their coworkers. But if Pete is driving you crazy, tell Pete, right? Pete doesn't own you. Pete's not your boss. Have that conversation with Pete. Sometimes you can't care about everybody's feelings. Have it in a respectful way, of course. Don't need to be hateful or damage our character or our reputation, but Have those tough conversations with people. One of the most common things that I've seen is that people will suffer in silence. They will get all the way to the point of quitting. They'll quit. They'll have their exit interview. They'll explain what happened, why they quit. And a lot of times people had no idea. They did not know that was a problem. They didn't know what was going on. And I mean that from a manager's perspective, but also a company. I've been in meetings where HR has found out something's happening and we never knew. Never had any idea that was going on. So don't suffer in silence. Question number 3, and this is the one I think most people don't think about, is what are you heading towards? If you quit this job, what direction are you going? Do you have a plan? Do you have another job lined up? Do you even know if it's easy to get another job? I think in a job market like today, you may look out there and see, thousands of jobs in your market. However, 800 of those jobs may be fake. You may not qualify for another 100. And, next thing you know, you've got limited options and a lot of people trying to apply. So you need to have a plan, have an exit strategy so that you're not just quitting off into nothing. And then, is there a purpose or a calling that you're moving towards? So are you just running from pain and frustration? Or are you running towards a better purpose or a calling? Very few people love their job. So we can't just quit out of frustration. We need to have a sense of where we're going. Question number 4 is, what's your financial situation? Do you have a family? Do you have kids? Are there people depending on you? Are you going to have to file bankruptcy if you can't pay all your bills or everything? Do you have a lot of debt? If you do, then you need to not quit until you have something else lined up. And it ties back to the planning. Is it possible to get another job? Do you need health insurance? Are you having issues in your life? And I've known a lot of people who have even retired and then had to come back and work to get the health insurance because of major medical issues. So think about everything. Don't let your emotions get the best of you. Be thoughtful. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, freedom feels a lot better when your bills are paid. So save up some expenses if you plan on quitting, especially if you don't have something lined up already. And then question number 5 is, how does it fit into the bigger picture of your life? Is this job you're quitting a stepping stone to the next step? So there are some jobs where, you can quit and pretty easily find a new job. There are other jobs where if you quit, there are major implications, even on your career. If you quit a job and then you can't find another job for a year or two, and now you have some weird gap on your resume, at certain levels, people are going to want to know what that's about. And you're going to need to be able to explain it. And so, if you're a cashier and you're just tired of it, then okay. But if you're some kind of senior analyst or something like that, where you're higher up and where people are going to question your work history, be thoughtful, And then I think also look at it from, is this move out of faith or fear, right? Are you being faithful in following what you believe to be the right path? Are you just making moves out of fear and stress and anxiety? Because those two different decision modes lead to much different results, and I would trust faith over fear every day. And then the least exciting piece of advice is to assess whether the right option is to just stay. I try to talk about a lot this idea that you don't have to escape your 9 to 5. I think that's such a popular topic nowadays. I think people love to talk about quitting. They love to talk about escaping their 9 to 5. And I think that's great if you can. And I think a lot of times people do that and just quite frankly make bad decisions. And then a lot of them end up having to go back to their 9 to 5 anyway. Whereas had they been patient, had they planned it out better, had they set themselves a runway of expenses and bills and, a future plan and everything, maybe it would have gone better. So have a plan, have a strategy in mind, and be prepared to stay, even if it is just staying for a period and then you quit anyway. Don't rush into quitting. I would ask myself these questions. So go through these 5 questions and really make sure that you're making a good decision. And even if you don't want to hear or think about the 5 questions, just be patient, right? I think any decision that you want to make, give it 2 weeks and then come back to that decision. Because I think a lot of times a little bit of time will change your mind in some way, shape, or form. And I think when you're talking about quitting your job, I think it's important to be correct, to have thought through it all. So I hope this video helps. If you are considering quitting, just think it through, make a good decision. I'm not saying that quitting is not the answer, but I am saying that rushing into that decision leads to a lot of mistakes for a lot of people. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.